So, yes, pleasure to come back. As I said, it's really good to come back a year on in to be able to explain what we've done over the last year. You know, I'm going to do a very brief 2 slides on what we do, and then really it's about what we've been doing over the last year. So for those of you who were here last year, the first couple of slides may look eerily reminiscent of what you saw, but I will breeze through them as quickly as I can to get onto the sort of what we've done piece. So, background. Cyber was identified a number of years ago as a tier 1 national threat, along with, I think, you know, vast wars, vast famines, and vast plagues, and so on. This was at the time of the austerity agenda, but the government threw a whole lot of money into cyber, part of which has trickled down to us. We are the National Computer Response Team, so we were set up approximately a year ago. The year ago, at the end of this month, we sort of went live. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but realistically, we actually took a lot of bits of existing stuff, banged them all together, just made them work better. And that's very much what we're trying to do here. It's all about collaboration and partnership and teaming up with people rather than being a new thing trying to stamp our voice or our authority on it. It's partnership with everyone. I have no remit, I have no legal mandate. If you guys don't want to work with me, I can't do anything, so I have to be good and deliver what you want, so you will work with me. And that's the message I bang through my team, I bang through Whitehall, and I very much bang through the people I talk to. So we build on and complement existing CERT structures. There's a Gov CERT, there's a Mod CERT, there are bank CERTs, there are industry CERTs. Nothing changes with those. Where we fit into this picture is we are that escalation collaboration piece that allows those people to come to us when they've got a problem that's too big for them. They can come to us, we will do what we can by bringing, you know, government resources to bear, international relationships, all that kind of stuff that we can do as a national CERT. Given that, we funnel right into the national security piece of government. So we can pull lots of levers. You know, in theory, I'm 3 handshakes away from the Prime Minister. It's slightly worrying. Not met him yet. Launched 2014 last year. That was very much phase 1. We've sort of finished phase 1. There's still a lot of building to go. I don't see this as anywhere near a done deal. There's a lot of work to go through to really get this right. And we're continuing to expand our aspirations and our ambitions to make sure that we really meet what you guys, what the industry and national infrastructure and whatever needs from us. That wasn't what I wanted. There you go, 4 things. So 4 things on my job description. If I just sort of pick the one, the major one and the others are sort of subsidiary, National Cyber Security Incident Management. So that's when things significantly go bump in the night. That's, you know, banking systems have fallen over, the back-end real-time gross settlement system isn't working, and it's all due to cyber. Serious stuff that very much needs a government response, but is causing real-world impact, and that's how they're measured. It's not measured by the nature of the attack, it's measured by the nature of the impact on the citizen or on the public. So, you know, if banking systems are down, you can't get paid, you can't go and buy food, you can't do this, that's a real-world impact. It's not the cyber piece that caused it, it's the follow-on from that. We've not yet had one, rather hoping I can wing my way through the next year and a half and not have one. However, the work there is all about planning and exercising and making sure that everybody sort of knows what we're going to do when one of those kicks in. The UK government follows what we call a lead government department model, so if there's a banking problem, Treasury lead. They have to mitigate the real-world impact to get money to you. If it's a power problem, DEC will lead. They have to work out their problems. We are the back-end bit looking at the cyber piece, so we have to train them to know what they want to do. So how do we fit into this? How does the whole... cyber's difficult. We don't know why something's happened. We don't know who did it. We don't know where it came from, but there's a real-world impact. So it might even be that we have a real incident and we don't realize for a week, 2, 3 weeks, that it's actually a cyber problem, that it's not a misconfiguration, that it's an attack, or it's whatever. So that's the big piece. The other 3 really are to make sure that we don't get to one of those. So supporting the critical national infrastructure, that was already done in government. That's very much aimed at making sure that the critical national infrastructure have a place to come to again, that there's a special relationship, I guess you'd call it, between us and them. You know, they're critical to us. We will very much want to make sure that they carry on and deliver the services we need them to deliver. So they are able to come to us again with their problems. We can, you know, they can fast track those through. Logically, a national incident will come out of the critical national infrastructure. If we can manage those down from the beginning so they don't get to be a national incident, that's a good thing. So that's sort of designed to stop the national incident happening. Situational awareness, again, already done within government. That will be the CISP, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Partnership. Already done within government, been live about a year when we actually fired up. But again, it's all about letting people understand the context of the world they live in, that cyber is not a particularly safe place to be, that you need to have defenses, that you need to be, you know, working on your systems, securing them and so on. It's a free system. I'll talk more about it later, but it's really aimed at it. We can talk to industry, but industry can talk to us, and industry can talk to industry, and that's where it proves really, really, really valuable when we see some of the conversations on there that actually help other people, businesses help other businesses get better and defend their space better. Ooh. Beer's on. Last piece is the new piece, and this is the international point of contact. So that wasn't really done within the government, although there were various sort of de facto bits that did bits of this before. If a CERT in Germany has a problem with the UK, someone or a bunch of people in the UK, and don't know where to go, don't come to us. We will then spit that out. And I'll talk more about how we do that in the future as we go through. It also allows us to play in international exercises, some of the European Network Information and Security folks, the ENISA exercises. It allows us to have bilaterals with other countries where we really want to work out how we can just work better. We all agree, we're not going to solve this problem, you're not going to solve this problem, we need to solve this problem. So those are the 4 things we do. To do that, 4 things across the top there. I have 5 teams. We're about 50 people now, 55. Very much broken into those, but if there's one thing I will bore my gang rigid with, it is that not one of those boxes fulfills one of those top-line objectives. Every one of them has a part to play in everything. So national incident management, if it's an international piece of it, that's the international engagement. The UK engagement do the exercises and go out and talk to people. The situational awareness people can feed in other contexts into a national incident, and the incident handlers are actually handling it. So it's a completely cross-team effort, and I will start kicking people around the room if I think they're getting siloed. So it's very much set up on that. And lastly, feeds, piece what we do. What we're trying to say is, A, we will pretty much talk to anyone. We're quite open and broad-minded like that. We really don't have a problem. If someone's got something that they want to tell us, we will talk to them, be that any other nation, be that any other CERT. But what we're trying to say is that rather than the old days where this was split into different, one bit was managed here, another bit was managed there, we have a single process. So all that information comes in. You'll see they're all 2-way arrows because we very much want to push stuff back out. But it all goes through a standard triage that basically says it's business as usual. So we fill it in on our weekly report and say we did stuff. Exceptional occurrence, which is where we sort of figure there's a level of government engagement that needs to be involved. Think shell shock, think heartbleed, think, even some of the recent stuff that we've seen. We need to be briefing up into our management chain within government. We need to be putting alerts out, but we're not actually coordinating. It's not a national incident. It's not, there isn't bad stuff really happening, but potentially. So it's mitigating that. Or there's the actual national cyber incident where we rock up to Cobra and a minister sort of slaps us around and tells us what we should be doing. So those are the things, but it's a single process. That's the crucial difference between where we were and where we are today. It's one team managing all of this, rather than 3 separate teams in 3 separate departments in 2 different counties at other ends of the country trying to coordinate and manage that together, which just doesn't, it worked. I understand why it got to where it got to, but it's not the best way of doing it. So that's what we do. That's what we've done or how we're set up. So since launch, so this is in the year since we've been here. I can give the overview slide. Ta-da. This is what we've sort of done. When I came last year, we had 373 organisations on our information sharing partnership. Now we're just off, I think, 970 odd. So we're teetering on the 1,000. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the month, but I'm not sure we'll manage that. So we've, well over, it's doubled, quadrupled, tripled the number of teams on there. We have 2,500 individuals on there. We had less than 1,000 last time. So again, nearly 2.5 times as many. So really, really big that. We can almost, we're bringing them on as fast as we can. There's no pushback on that. That's going really, really quite well. The ROCUs, the regional nodes that we've built. So we've built these in conjunction with folks like Andrew, Mr. Parker at the back there, and the regional organised crime units within ACPO. So they came to us and said, we'd like to do regional information sharing. Like, why? What is this regional nonsense? It's all cyber. It's a log on and an ID, and you can do it from anywhere. And I don't get it. It's all about the trust. So the ability to bring people in with existing trust relationships from the world, the real world, drop them into our CISP where they can maintain those trust relationships. They have their own little areas. They know all the people within that area. They are quite happy to talk to each other. They may not be quite so comfortable talking to other people. So that's proved enormously valuable. And the ROCU folks are also using this they are the champions of those nodes, so they're pushing out their awareness and their local awareness, stuff happening here, stuff happening there, through that. So we're trying to become that sort of one-stop information sharing portal for several bits of government because it just makes sense. We've got the system in place. Why would we want to build another one? Lots of liaison. God, we talk to people all the time. I spend my life talking to other people. I think we had Peru in a couple of weeks ago. It's rather strange. But we, again, more than happy to talk to other countries, get relationships right. So when we have a national incident, I know the phone number. I know the bloke I want to talk to. I've spoken to him in a meeting. It's not a, here's a list of phone numbers, try ringing them and see who you get through to. We've built those relationships with those countries to make sure that we know how to get stuff done. Obviously, we have a list of sort of priority countries that are more important to us than others, but there's a big list, and we're very much working on that list to make sure we get the right people in at the right time. The bilateral exercises, there's a sort of single one-on-ones. You might have seen the Prime Minister and the President of the United States announced a big financial exercise towards the end of this, well, early this year, end of last year. That's us again, joy of joys. So we now, as usual, stuff just wings its way in as you hear from the President and the Prime Minister. We've got to build that financial exercise and work with the finance houses both here and in the US and with CERT-UK, the US CERT, to do that financial exercise. That's what we do. It's planning, it's exercising, it's making sure that we know how things work, who we need to contact and how it will work in the event of a national incident. Multilateral exercises, that's things like ANISA. So 28 countries all played, 3 separate days. Two of them were last year, one of them was this year, all the way from actually analysing malware right up to it's a national incident, what do we do now? So a whole lot of planning and exercising. And those allow us to really, it all sounds like you just make a phone call and it works, but it really allows us to tease out exactly who does what where, because no other country is the same as us, and we are not the same as any other country. So that's very useful. Tickets. Tickets is always interesting. So when I was at City, we'd do 700 tickets in a heartbeat. That was a morning's work. That was nothing. You have to remember, we're really focused on the tickets that are of interest to us. We are focused on, stuff that could be of interest to the government. So we don't do the volume of tickets that people would, might expect from an ordinary CERT. We are really only interested in significant stuff. Of those, a third of incidents were malware related. So this is where we're getting reports of, data leaving companies, going places that it shouldn't be going to, genuine IP theft, stuff leaving, and general harm to the UK PLC. So we're very keen on working those, and we will go, when we hear about them, we'll go back out and talk to the companies involved, make sure that they can get on top of it and they can nail this. More than 200 tickets that actually required, a reasonable amount of work above and beyond a phone call. So that's stuff like Heartbleed and Shell Shock and Freak and stuff like that, where we genuinely, do jump into action and do stuff. And 2 major events. So that was the Commonwealth Games and the NATO Summit. Commonwealth Games was interesting. I think we decided that realistically, those who could do bad stuff probably wouldn't, and those who wouldn't, who wanted, those who wanted to couldn't, and those who could wouldn't want to, so to speak. Realistically, who's going to knock over a sporting event? It doesn't look good to anyone, really. It doesn't get you big. But the NATO Summit, that's a different kettle of fish. So that we were very involved in that. A lot of planning up front, a lot of making sure that their systems are resilient. And you have to bear in mind, this is a golf hotel. It's not actually set up to run a summit. So there's a lot of kit shipped in, a lot of hardening, a lot of training, a lot of liaison, a lot of exercising. What would happen if? Who would you call? How would it work? So that was really quite fun. So working with law enforcement, that's something we're very keen on. I'm very keen that we do that. I sort of figure that while it's all very interesting, playing whack-a-mole, if we don't actually stop people doing this stuff, it's not going to work. So we're very keen on the law enforcement. So you'll see on there, we are very tied into the National Crime Agency, Home Office, and Action Fraud. So the stuff that we see, essentially the stuff that we see is either a crime, because it's broken the Computer Misuse Act, or it's the precursor to a bigger crime. So we're very keen on making sure that where we see stuff, we don't drop the ball between government departments. Now, that's not to say that we bulk shift data. We certainly don't do that. But we have people on site who we can talk to and say, we're seeing this. Is this of interest to law enforcement? Does it help you build a better case? Does it kick off a case? Is it a bit of a wider picture? What's the best way of dealing with it? So we're very keen on that. International campaigns, so the Optovar, the Opdisputed, we're becoming that sort of information aggregator and then pushing out to the ISPs and the banks as to people who are infected through the sinkholes that are then set up. So where the FBI have grabbed these, they now own the sinkholes, they're seeing all the communications come in from the infected machines, we then take that data and pass it back. So again, it's fulfilling that national CERT role. FBI don't want to work out if it's a bank, an ISP, a business, a corporation, or this. They want to give it to someone in the UK, that person in the UK deals with it. That's us, so we're very big on that. You could sort of argue it's not really critical national infrastructure because it's malware on people's PCs, but we would pull back on that. It's the reputational piece of the UK, and if people lost their confidence in the internet because of malware, that could cause significant issues to the government as well. So it does fit absolutely in our remit. Sometimes it needs a bit of explaining. They sit on our operations board, so we have a very, very close relationship. When we talk about stuff, we visit them, we talk to them about what their plans are, they talk to us. It is extremely close. They work in our fusion cell, and I'll talk about that in a few seconds, probably less than a few seconds, when it's like yellow card's gone. And we share information from them also gets shared back out to the businesses on CISP, and that's proved enormously valuable. At the beginning, there was do we want law enforcement on there, will that work? I think most of the people on CISP has actually found they get a lot more out of law enforcement than any possible downside, because we haven't yet seen a downside. Regional nodes, so this one grew out of the Commonwealth Games. We set one up for the companies involved in the Commonwealth Games, in that it was a single point. We could throw all our anti-DDoS, our advice, our whatever, into that bucket. They could all liaise amongst themselves, talk amongst themselves. We thought this makes sense, so that's now been renamed the Scottish node. We have various, gosh, I'm trying to think of the ones, East Midlands and various other nodes that have kicked off. Northern Ireland's kicked off, I think Wales has kicked off. And we're now using that, as I talked earlier. This is to help push the word out regionally with those trust relationships. But the fusion cell we have allows us to see into all of those and pull out join the dots across those things. Essentially, yeah, it's a tool for any organisation. You know, our usual line is, if you are defending any kind of networks in the UK, you can join CISP. So we had a primary school join CISP quite recently, which will bring me on to another problem when we get there. But it allows those people to not spend, you know, they can, rather than having to research issues themselves or go and buy for it, consultancy, they can come to us and they will often find information about shell shock. This is the problem, this is what you need to do, this is how to fix it. It's a single-stop shop that we can use all of the information security organisations on our CIF, sort of crowdsource that, produce a one-pager. That means those SMEs don't have to spend hours of their life Googling Heartbleed, which is obviously going to return a lot of hits, and then work out what to do. So it's allowing the SMEs and those smaller companies to do stuff that they couldn't do because they don't have big vulnerability threat management teams. Information sharing partnership, rattling through. So this was set up a year before we went live. It was very much, it came out of a Valentine's Day breakfast, I'm told, at Number 10 with the Prime Minister and senior industry figures who said, wouldn't it be a good thing if we shared a lot of information? Everybody thought that would be a good thing. They then used a thing called Project Auburn that some of you may have heard of, which proved that it was a very good thing to share information. It was just physically impossible to do it on that platform because it sucked. So that's when we built the CISP. CISP is a social networking platform. It's a Jive-based social networking platform. It's significantly secured from that. It's two-factor authentication. You know, we do put a lot of time and effort into making it secure because we're very cognizant that, you know, if that gets breached, that's going to blow our trust relationship with all our members completely out of the window, and it will be an enormously useful piece of information for any bad guy who wanted to attack us, because here's lots of stuff about how the UK's, you know, some of it's not quite as secure as you'd want it to be. Current membership, yeah, it's about 2,500, it's 970 now, I'm pretty sure, so we've done it. It's free, it costs you nothing. There is no reason not to join this. The only thing it will cost you is an incoming text every time you log in, and if you're on a usual plan, that costs you nothing. And it's a number of groups. So in the same way that a networking platform, ooh, he's getting the red one out. I'm rattling through. You did start me late. There are rooms on there. Those rooms can be locked down with only specific people allowed in, and the members can be those sort of gatekeepers in there. So banks have their own room. People in banks know other people in banks. It's a very small world. I came from that world. I know it very well. So they will talk about stuff that they don't want. Or they don't know the people in retail who may be facing exactly the same problem. So the retail have a room, the banks have a room, we have open rooms such as, you know, malware analysis or security training, and then we have closed rooms. It's a very flexible environment. But our guys, which will be these Fusion Cell folks here, and I think if I go on to the next one, you'll see, right, these Fusion Cell, they can see right across that piece. They can see everything in there. Now, they have a very strict set of terms and conditions because, as you can see, you know, Lloyd's Bank are in there. There'll be other banks in there. We want to make sure that the other banks are comfortable sharing, knowing that someone from Lloyd's Bank might be able to see that. So it's a fairly locked down environment, but it allows them to bring their industry expertise in. It allows them to say, ooh, that's happening in banking, ooh, might be happening in retail as well, let's join dots and stuff, let's pull together that information. As you can see, you know, there's police, there's GCHQ, there's Microsoft, there's MOD, there's MI5, all these people sit in that environment, throwing rocks in ponds, trying to generate discussion, trying to stimulate, you know, responses, trying to tease out questions. If someone comes up and says, well, could you give us a bit more information? What else can you tell us about that? So they function in that role, and they're very, very powerful. Click. So when we talked about the primary school joining, that's highlighted one thing. Originally, we were focused on critical national infrastructure. So the reports were very bits, bytes, tech, malware, URL, you know, real codey stuff. Primary schools don't really understand that quite so much. So we're having to broaden, and I'm not saying refocus, we are broadening our level of reports. So there are things like an introduction to malware. You know, it's very basic stuff, but it's quite surprising how much that's been reviewed and monitored, and people like what they're seeing there because it gives them that one pager. It's not a commercial thing, so we're not trying to sell them product, view of what you should do to defend yourself against malware. But then we go right through to, compromised FTP reports, cloud and data storage. But then if you join the CISP, there's a lot more technical stuff. We have a lot of the FBI reports on there. We have an arrangement with them. We can ping them straight over. So there's a lot of information on CISP. And I will unashamedly say, if you're not on CISP, why aren't you on CISP? Get on CISP, because that's where the information is. You can pick up some of this stuff from our website, but the meat is really on the CISP. Our asks and offers, I will rattle through these. So we will give, alerts and advisories, we will give standards and things. So we'll pull a lot of the HMG piece. We try and do that single message. It's not multiple pieces of government giving you different advice. We want to join those dots together. Membership to discussion, cyber risk review, so we can tie in with the CNI. We have abuse SA, so we pull in a million events a day into an abuse SA feed, which we can then spit straight back at you if you've given us your details. So if we have your IP ranges and an email address, we can automatically feed you stuff that's coming into us, and that's something we're very, very keen on. It allows us to do the scale, which we can't do right now. Incident handling, you can join the Fusion cell, that's really valuable, I think. International engagement, so when we've done international exercises, we've had CISP partners on board doing those exercises with us. Second to last slide. So our ask is that you actually defend your networks, that you do put time and effort into it and making sure they're secure. Encourage your supply chain to do that. So things like the cyber essentials piece, I look at it and say it's very simple, but frankly, when we look at the incidents we run, a huge amount of our incidents would just disappear if people followed the absolutely basic cyber essentials 10 steps. It's not difficult. Appropriate points of contact so we can get in touch with you, especially if you're part of that CNI piece. IP ranges for the abuse SA, join CISP, do stuff on CISP, talk on it, talk about joining the Fusion cell. Share data, share. That's what we're all about, is partnership and sharing. The more we can share that into a single pool rather than fragmenting it, the better we're going to be. Engage in exercises. We're very keen on working with you. There's an exercise node. You can pull down exercises to work through at your companies to say, if this happened, what would we do? We're very keen on being part of that because we need to understand you. We don't own the CNI. We don't understand the CNI. It's not ours. We need the CNI to help work with us and other people. And provide feedbacks. If you don't like what we're doing, tell us, because there's absolutely no point in me wandering around doing this stuff if we're producing stuff that is no value to industry. And that